And hello. We are here playing Candlelight. I'm Gabriel. I created this game, and I've got some amazing players here with me. I'm going to introduce in a second. But as a quick overview, Candlelight is a game about desperate, lost ghosts in the forest trying to escape a place that wants to keep them there as they revisit their past and try to find an outcome of hope or despair. So we're going to get into it in a second, but I want to introduce the players. If you guys want to say your name, pronouns, any stuff you're up to, you want to shout out real quick.
Hi, I'm Skye Zentz. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm super excited to play Candlelight tonight. I also wrote the Candlelight theme song, which you just heard, or maybe you'll hear it again, one or the other. And I got to watch this game's inception from beginning till now because I live with that guy over there, or there, Gabriel. I live with Gabriel. Yeah, I'm a singer-songwriter in Norfolk, and I teach ukulele and songwriting at the Muse Writers Center, and all of our classes are online right now. So come take a class with me, and that's all.
Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to joke about, we live together. We're married. She saw me put this game together, and she's still here playing it. So hopefully that's a good sign of this game. Carry on.
And I'm Akie Bermiss, pronouns he, him, but I signed in too early to change those things. And on my name badge, I'm a musician, singer, songwriter, etc. from Brooklyn. I play with a band called Lake Street Dive, and I have a podcast about Star Trek Discovery called Set Phasers, a highly illogical Star Trek podcast. I did that terribly, but that's
also known as.
It's known as.
That's what.
Yeah.
That's what all of us Patreon backers call it.
That's
anyway.
Right. All the inner circle people know to call it. And I'm excited to play Candlelight.
Awesome. Yeah. Always excited to have you guys and play together. And excited to see how you fill out these characters. We got some really cool characters in the sheet here. I'm going to do really quickly what's called CATS, which is fun. It's an overview that stands for concept, aim, tone, and subject matter. Just for people watching this who might not be familiar with the game. Again, the concept is that you are all ghosts who have met your doom in this forest. And in this case, it's actually going to be a swamp. And you are revisiting, reckoning with your past deeds or encounters and trying to reflect and find some hope. And maybe fulfill one last wish you had while you were living, or some new wish now that you're in the spirit realm. And the game ends in an arc of either hope or despair. So you could either become more and more dark and tormented and powerful as this ghost, or you could sort of become lighter and escape the forest, the swamp at the end. So yeah, the aim is to explore that. It's kind of an introspective horror game is the idea. So we can get dark with some of the themes. The players have described lines and veils off of the recording. So there's some content we're not going to have in the game. There's some that might be in the game, but it's sort of off screen. And we're using X-Card as well as a safety tool. So if anyone gets into content that's uncomfortable, we can always X that out and just continue on. So it's fun for everybody. So the tone, again, it's a dark horror game. There may be moments of comedy that come up or just revisiting your past life. So whatever that means to your character. So as dark or as light as you would like it to be, really. Subject matter, again, being a horror game, there may be themes of, violence from your past that happen to your character. You may encounter some monstrous monsters to fight and stuff like that. But again, we put that in our lines and veils, so it should be pretty fun and strange. So that's kind of an overview of how the game works. Do you guys want to introduce your characters really quick? Just say kind of their names and what you have on the character sheet there.
Sure. My My character is based on a character that I used in a previous campaign of D&D. I would also just like to add that that's a really cool aspect of Candlelight. And there was, I guess, some stuff that was written specifically for bringing past fallen D&D characters into the Candlelight setting. Gabriel, if you want to segue about that, you're welcome to.
Yeah, that's in the game. I'll have to put a link to the game, but that was written by Natalie Ash, a friend of mine who writes awesome games as well. So if you have like a past campaign or you had a character that literally died in another game, that's one way you can play this game, is to bring them in as a ghost character. Even though yours didn't die, but you're exploring her as a spirit character, maybe.
I wrote a short story about her backstory while I was playing the game. So I've like explored her past, and now I'm going to explore, I guess, her death, which will be interesting to then maybe one day go back. But her name is Basil. Her doom was that she was transformed. She went into the swamp to smuggle kind of some sort of, I'm thinking it's like some sort of a magical weapon. A very like powerful magical weapon, and in trying to smuggle that out, somehow the swamp actually transformed her. She is a companion to Akie's character, or the companion of Akie's character. I'm thinking maybe we were involved in this smuggle op together, and she is a rebel. In her D&D days, she was connected with the organization, the Clasp, so she was kind of involved in a little bit of criminal underbelly, which is why she was called upon to be a smuggler. And her hope is, as the fallen version of herself, to embody that relic that she was coming to smuggle out, so that some other traveler can end up kind of wielding that magical weapon imbued with her essence to do great deeds, which I guess she was intending to do with it. And yeah, I think that's all.
Cool. Definitely come back to what that relic is. I'm actually really curious now. Yeah. Oh, there we go.
All right, figured it out. My character is named Dua Grievous. Dua Grievous is a sort of a guardian / warrior, sort of a warrior, sort of like a barbarian knight, if you will. Very obsessed with the code of honor, but more like a sort of berserker, but also a skilled poet and possibly bard. Met his doom while, traveling with, basil, right? Not
Basil. Not like the herb.
Oh, it is basil. Okay,
like
great.
the herb.
Fantastic.
The British pronunciation,
like the herb,
maybe.
Basil.
Yeah, basil.
Yes, basil. Basil. And I think that I probably was hired by Basil as some muscle to keep Basil safe during this trip.
Definitely.
And I met, my doom was that I was maddened. So likely whatever befell Basil had a similar effect upon me, drove me mad, and maybe caused me to die. My drive is to meet my ancestors, sort of like Valhalla style. Go to the land where all warriors of reputation go after they've died. And do I have anything else? That was my hope, right? The hope is the drive. And I have some skills which I will keep secret for the time being, I guess, from the viewer.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So, again, this I may not have described that well. This is an adaptation of the game Trophy Dark, which involves treasure hunters going into a haunted or cursed place that doesn't want them there. And it's a play-to-lose game where your characters are probably dead or worse by the end of it. Candlelight is based in that system. It just flips it around to now you were trying to escape from that place. characters in Candlelight have what are called dirges, which are basically spells, but sort of these laments they can unleash on the world to change their environment through powerful magic. Because otherwise, they're fairly weak. They're kind of in this spectral form and still kind of realizing what their abilities are in the world. A couple other things really quickly for just overview of how the game works. As ghost characters, again, you have abilities. You can unleash these dirges to really do powerful things in the environment. There'll be dice rolls that happen when things get risky. As far as what's risky for you as a spirit now, I guess the main thing is that the world around you is unknown. You've just kind of woken up and realized your body's dead, and you're trying to navigate this in-between space of the afterlife. So there might be other ghosts out there. There's other entities that may, want to consume you or chase you away or whatever. So even though your physical body is dead, the worst has happened. It's still unknown kind of what other threats are out there. So that's where the risk comes in with the dice. So basically you can do anything a character would, but it's the ghost version is the easy way to look at it. And the forest, or in this case, the swamp, what it wants is to trap you there, because this is a place that has been invaded over and over again by other would-be heroes, treasure hunters or smugglers or whatever, taking away the treasures within this cathedral and this swamp, which I'll get to in a second. But what this place wants is to trap you there so you become its own monsters and ghosts, so you can scare off future intruders or you can guard its borders. So it's not necessarily evil. It's just sort of a lot of dark, terrible things have happened here, and maybe dark magics in the past. So all of that is sort of transformed the landscape, and anything that dies here sort of becomes another spirit. So that's kind of what's at stake. And the other thing to mention is I'm adapting an incursion from Trophy. So it's called the Flocculent Cathedral. I'm using that in Candlelight to play it backwards. So if anyone watching this is familiar with Trophy, that's an incursion you can play with that game. So the game will have 3 phases. It will start out with what's called the Wake, where I kind of give a quick overview of sort of the journey that you all may have had. As you retrace your steps, you'll kind of discover what actually happened, but a quick overview of sort of what's happened, how you got here. Then we'll get into the actual journey of you navigating that space as ghosts. And then eventually we'll come to the final song, which will be like your character epilogues. So when one of you reaches a total of 6, hope or despair, you've kind of reached the end of your character arc, and we'll kind of have those scenes and see how the story resolves. So we're going to start. This is sort of the Wake. So the last thing, to mention is that throughout play, you can do flashbacks. So at any point in time, it's a very collaborative game. You're going to flesh out the story. I'm not going to presume sort of what exactly happened to your character. That's going to come from you. And that can be discovering it as you retrace it, literally see it in front of you and go, oh yeah, here's what happened. Or you can do a roll to do a literal flashback and kind of play it out. So at the center of this swamp, the mossy Flocculent Cathedral, where you've met your doom at the end of your journey. Both Dua and Basil come into consciousness, floating just over your bodies at the center of this moss-covered cathedral built out of trees. And as that shock of realizing that you've just died starts to sink in, you kind of have a quick bunch of images flash before your eyes of your recent journey. And that's me describing that for a second. So you look back and you remember coming into this swamp, whether to seek treasures there or to smuggle them there or to find secrets of the mysterious sisters, who are these saints who are said to have their own altars and powers that reside here. You first came to the edges of the swamp and you encountered bandits who lived there. who were singing these songs about all the past treasure hunters who died in the fen, in the swamp. It was kind of eerie because it seemed to reference you, but you managed to get past them and press further in. And the marshy ground and brambles and swarms of insects started to bar your way and make your journey more and more difficult. And you pressed on and you came across shrines of these sisters, patron saints who you had some sort of relationship with, or you learned about within the cathedral. And as you pressed on beyond that, you all began to have visions and dreams of what was to come. And as you woke up, you found your bodies starting to become changed by the fen. And then finally, as you got closer to the cathedral itself, as the swamp became more and more dense and covered in moss and fungi, you encountered a massive towering stag that was exhaling poisonous spores, and dead treasure hunters who had come here before now turned into mushroom creatures, kind of mimicking their former selves. All of these things started to pursue you further into the swamp. And as you started to hear sounds of voices singing hymns and hints of silver and jade coming through from deep in the swamp, you came across the cathedral itself. And inside there were statues of these saints. And there was a tome of verdant green leather sitting on this lectern with secrets waiting to be discovered. And after that, it's all a bit of a blur. As madness took you or transformed you or overcame your physical body, as this whole place caught up and changed you and ultimately killed you. And you have now woken up and see that you're no more. You were just a floating ball of light looking down on your bodies. So that's the overview. That's the wake. What are your first thoughts after realizing this?
Basil? Basil, are you here? Have I died? Is this the ancestral ground?
I'm
Ah,
I'm dead.
I think we're both dead. Yes.
My first thought, breaking voice and just narrating, is that I would probably reach up and feel for horns that were part of my head as a tiefling in my D&D existence. But I'm thinking those horns had become like stag-like spore antlers in that transformational period. I'm thinking the mushroom folk had kind of heaped upon me, and so I had felt myself starting to sort of turn porous and sporous, as it were. So I'm thinking I initially like feel for whether or not I have real horns again, or ghost horns, or if I still feel mushroom horns. And Gabriel,
I think it's
do you have an
actually,
answer?
yeah, and I think it's cooler to just, if you tell me what it looks like. I think what you do realize is it's not tangible in the same way. You kind
That's
of look
what I was
for it more.
thinking.
Yeah.
Like my hand just, there's like, I go to touch my form and it just sort of envelops.
I feel
'Cause
like
there's
the edges of where your boundaries of what your skin or your horns or your clothing, it just kind of dissolves and trails off into those spores. And I like the idea that that's where the light's coming from. You're sort of a collection of these glowing spores.
So I would immediately then think of time and just sort of be like, how long was I out? You were behind me.
hold. and I will float closer to my body on the ground and see if I can tell how long we were dead. If we're long dead, or this is a recent, sudden transformation.
I think as you look down, it was recent, and you're just that shock kind of overtakes you for a second as you're just coming to that full realization that that's your body there, and this is you as a spectral form. And this is where, as a player, because you had to select it as your character sheet, you can just say how it was that you died at the end, and we can do flashbacks. We can kind of flesh it out more. But you look down and you see there's some clear way that, oh, that's why I'm dead. What do you each see?
I think that Dua is very familiar with dead bodies, and
Ooh.
yeah, that's right. Hold on.
That was very eerie. Was that a ghost going by?
Yeah, it was a ghost bus. We'll notice that rigor mortis has not set in, so it's only been a day, something to that effect. The skin is still is waxy, but not completely stiff and cold. You can tell just from looking. So he will say, if this madness is to be believed, we have only recently died. These bodies, our bodies, are yet to be consumed by this swamp.
Yeah, my thought is that my body that I see before me is covered in mushrooms. But then again, these very stag-like horns that are again made of mushroom spores, and near my body, I'm thinking there's sort of like magic trail, sort of like glitteriness that is clearly like kind of sprinkled with different smaller mushroom bits too. So I'm thinking that basically the mushroom animals that you mentioned were sort of following me and maybe leading me in circles, and then basically like overtook me and
Consumed you.
bored me out.
Bored you out. Because your character is transformed. Right.
Yes.
Okay. And you notice too that you're still focused in on your own body, and you kind of look up a little bit and your awareness kind of expands, and you see in this, again, you're in a cathedral that is made out of trees that have all kind of bent inward and are all just covered in vines and moss. And there are the faint forms of statues kind of out towards the walls. You don't quite notice what their forms are yet, but you see sort of an altar near your bodies, and there's that relic that you were smuggling in here. You see that.
I was supposed to be smuggling it out.
Oh, you came here to smuggle it out. Okay.
Yes.
So you see what you came in here to claim, and it is sort of half fallen off of the altar. What is it? What did you come here for?
I was just looking it up.
Roll stuff and come up with ideas.
No, I was looking it up in Google just to make sure that I had the right thing. Yeah. I was coming for the silver sickle, which was, your typical sickle. So it's that, it looks like a giant hook with a handle on the bottom. But it was supposedly to have been dropped here in this swamp by some sort of legendary heroic figure, maybe associated with the clasp. Maybe I am still associated with the clasp, or maybe even this was like my coming back to the clasp for one last job was like, you have to go get this legendary item that was used to slay some mythical swamp beast and bring it back to us. But I'm thinking the smuggler part and the rebel part was probably that at some point I decided Basil wants it for herself. She's not going back to the clasp again, so she's gonna. And I'm thinking we were like almost to it. I'm thinking I could even see it or see where it was supposed to be at the time I died.
I'm going to come back to that in a second.
Sure.
Dua, you look over your body too, and you see clear signs of, while it is recent, sorry, I'm looking over the sheet. You were maddened. Something happened when you both got to the center of this cathedral. You clearly had a reason you came here together. But as you saw your companion Basil pick up the sickle, and you saw all the creatures that had pursued you to the center here, what ultimately drove you mad or overcame you?
I look upon my body and see that though the vagaries of rot have yet to grasp my flesh, the eyes are gouged out. I remember that we attained the central portion of the citadel of the cathedral. We battled our way through, and I was holding the door as Basil went forward to retrieve the item of our journey. But I heard a strange sound, and as I turned back, I saw her grip the sickle, perhaps, or touch it, and as she did, the mutations that had begun to take hold of her form turned into something terrifying, truly like nausea-inducing, just full of sickly power and evil, and it drove me to madness. I dropped my weapons, and with my own hands ripped my eyes from their sockets and fell to my knees, and then that's all I remember, honestly.
It was quite a sight seeing me with that sickle.
It was a sight, the very last sight I hoped ever to see, and yet here we are.
And seeing this for each of you, you both realize in your own time, looking down on your bodies, that whatever you came here for, you will not manage to accomplish that. You're beyond that. And I want to touch on the drives that you each have. We might come back to those, but keep those in mind. But looking down on your body, you realize that's the wild, intense power here threatens to overwhelm you. Those spores, those creatures that protected this place, and the beings that you realized maybe at the last moment dwell here. These statues, these mysterious sisters. You may have heard while you were alive about people who worship them, and for their different qualities. You may have heard stories about how they were maybe not really saints. They were much older powers. Maybe you had relationships to one of them, when we're going to come back to that. But the powerful charge of this place threatens to basically overwhelm the fragile, like, floating spirit that you are right now. And you realize that to get out of here or finish what you still want to accomplish, you're going to have to leave your body behind. And so for each of you, this is going to be a reckoning roll. Let me find that part in the rules.
Time to reckon.
Come on and get your reckon on. Come on and get your reckon on.
That's exactly how I pictured it. No, reckoning. So basically you're going to, we have the roll for your party link on the side. And sorry, I am reading my own game that I wrote because it's been a little while.
Just a nice reminder here, folks, that when you're running any game, even if you made it, you have no control over what silly songs will be made up
It's good. It helps
based on your
to
game.
Correct.
lighten the mood.
You're playing with two songwriters, so things are going to get weird.
Come on and get your reckon on. What you rolling? Come on and get your reckon on.
Roll for the party.
Nice. Yeah, exactly. So each of you roll one dark dice, and what you're looking at is your despair. So on your character sheet, it looks like Dua is at 3 despair, and Basil is at 1. So you're going to make a roll, and if it is, you're going to see if it's lower or higher than your current despair.
Mine is higher.
What'd you roll? I didn't see it.
Oh, I was the lower right one. I rolled a 3.
Okay, cool.
And I shall roll now. Roll, damn you. A 5. Mine is also higher.
It's fitting because it's still coming to terms with realizing you are not going to get out of here with what you hope to do. So for each of you, your despair is going to increase by 1. And this is the track to where if it gets to 6, you are totally lost. But you also feel as that happens, that intensity. Sorry, we have a cat litter box right here that's scratching in the ground around you. You feel that those layers of this dark magic that have built up in this place seeping into your being and giving you new powers and new ways you could channel it and let it out if you chose to. So you'll see on your character sheet, as you increase your despair, you get to pick another dirge. What's going on? Sorry, the cat set off my phone somehow. Voice activated. Does that make sense on the character sheet?
Yes.
Awesome. But as you realize this, as you face this reckoning, there's something else that comes up, and I would like to hear more about each of your drives. What it is that, as you face this, you realize you still might have a chance of accomplishing.
I'm sorry. What were we supposed to do with the despair going up? That means you get to do what?
You get to pick another dirge. So the way it's lined up is, you always have the same number of dirges as the level of your despair. So you actually have more abilities the closer you are to becoming a full monstrosity of this place.
Cool. Thank you. Sorry. Back to the game.
No problem. Now we have cat litter, real life things happening next to my mic here. And I see.
I thought you were going to start describing the smells, of the forest, as well as the scratching sounds, the smell of decaying mushroom matter.
Absolutely. It's actually the most potent here in the center. It is, it is what overcame you. But what is, so for Dua, I see you've picked that, or you have a new dirge. What is your drive?
My drive is merely the drive of all warriors. We wish to die not in our sleep or of old age and infirmity, but nobly in battle, felled by an enemy our equal or better, to die with reputation and to move on to the ancestral ground, where all who have proved themselves worthy in life feast forever after, swapping stories. So to meet my true ancestors.
Yeah. Did any of them come here before you, or maybe live here?
It is possible. It's possible that along the way, Dua witnessed saw several markings. I believe you mentioned that just outside of the cathedral there was a stag exhaling poisonous spores, and that there were many warriors who had turned into sort of mushroomy logs or something. I think in that penultimate moment of panic and flight, I did see those bearing the mark of other warriors of my tribe.
Awesome. Yeah, that's and makes it that much more tangible that you may be closer to meeting them than you've ever been.
But at this moment, my madness continues, for it appears I've died not in battle, not by gaining reputation, but driven mad and forced from my own body by whatever horrid power looms here in this cathedral.
And Basil, as you feel that power starting to seep into your being as well, you gain a new dirge as well. And I would like to hear what that is, but also what your drive is now that you've seen that your task you came here for is impossible. What do you hope to accomplish now?
Again, my drive is to embody a powerful relic to be wielded in great deeds. So my thought is that upon seeing myself dead with the sickle maybe just out of my hand, fallen out of my hand as I was running from the mushroom warriors that overtook me, I likely not at the time of my death. Oh, we got a cat. Psst. Sorry, just have to spray a cat. Give a little shower. I'm not thinking this was my thought at the time of my death, but afterwards, and seeing my body, I think I realized, like, oh well, if anything is to ever come of this weapon again, there will likely not be someone else coming after me to look for this weapon, because they know that if they sent the great Basil and the great Dua and they did not return, that there's no need to send anyone else, because, clearly if the best can't do it. So I, decide for myself that must mean that I just have to embody this weapon and maybe try to call to someone else to come take it, so that then I can be with the weapon forever and do great deeds as the weapon.
And one thing that comes with that is realizing that here it's just going to draw in other people to the same fate. They're going to come here trying to claim it, and they're going to meet a similar end, just like all of those other warriors that had fallen and become overrun by the power of this place. And you realize to do that, you're going to need to bring it out of the swamp. Maybe if it gets out into the daylight, out to where other heroes might find it, you would have a chance of that becoming true. So this is where we're sort of going to interpret a little bit that your ghost characters, you can manipulate physical stuff. When it comes to anything challenging, we'll kind of get into the dice rolls. But if you wish to, you can definitely go. And you find that in the same way that you see your same spectral form, but it's less tangible, you see the spiritual form of that weapon now. You see all the power making the shape of that sickle as if it's formed out of moonlight. So you can definitely pick it up if you wish to.
A spiritual weapon, you say? I'm aware.
Bonus action.
Mm-hmm.
The D&D is creeping back in. I don't know. It's great.
Actually, I made a cosplay version of the spiritual weapon for my old character, Elliptica Moonglade, who she had like a sword that glowed purple, and I lined it in glowy lights. So just, fun facts for our viewers.
It's great. I like it. So you both realize that you need to move out of this place. The weight of this tragedy is just, you feel like it's seeping into you. If you stay here too long, you're just gonna dissolve into more mushrooms and swamp grass and plants of part of this cathedral. But before you make your way out, you realize that there's a gate you hadn't noticed on the way in here. And maybe it's something that has changed. The physical landscape seems to kind of waver in and out of being what you remember it looked like when you were living, and almost this glowing spectral form of it in the spirit realm. And on the edge of this cathedral, you see a gate, and it looks like maybe it's expanded out of the sides of these trees. It's a big gate made out of tree branches and vines, and mushrooms growing up the sides of it, and there's strange symbols carved into the sides of it. And on either side of this gate are wood figures, almost like they've grown out of the bark, and they're both kind of just palms are open, just kind of looking down in the space between the gate. And this is sort of the representation of passing on from this particular part of your afterlife. So to pass through here, both made the reckoning roll. Is there any other things you want to revisit about your last moments here before you move on? You can do that through flashbacks, or you can just continue to explore.
Well, I was going to ask, do we know how many sisters there are from when we saw the statues earlier, or when we first, it seems like we were in a rush when we got into the shrine itself here.
You see that all around the sides of this, there's, I don't know, how many do you think there are? There could definitely be, there's at least 7, I would say. But it's almost, again, yeah. the space flickers in and out. So you see one, and then you're like, maybe part of your consciousness is counting, and then it almost seems like that hall of mirrors, if like mirrors are facing each other, where you look one way and they just keep going, like maybe they're infinite forms that keep shifting. But actually,
and maybe even seeing old versions of ourselves in those kind of flickers too.
I think also the statues of these sisters, these as far as I can count 7, these 7 strange sisters, though they are immobile, they seem to be reaching out to us, and I feel they wish to bind not only these bodies but our spirits here, and that we must away in order to free ourselves from this cathedral.
And I would love to scoop up a little of the mushroom bit and potentially grab that and the sickle before I go through. I mean, I don't even know if the mushroom stuff will just disintegrate as we pass through the gate, but...
Actually, what I was going to say, I forgot one feature where when your ruin goes up, sorry, not ruin, it's despair in this game, that manifests a little bit, because if that continues on that track, you will become a full embodiment of that despair. But for Basil, you notice that as you go to scoop up those mushrooms, it's sort of like where your spectral feet are touching the ground, it makes more mushrooms sprout out, just little ones, and they start to glow. So you can definitely carry some. If you touch them, you realize they start to maybe sort of form on your ghostly skin in some way, and then they kind of fall away. So it's almost like they're growing at a faster rate around you wherever you go. And for, sorry, clicking over here. For Duo, you almost seem to notice the opposite as you gained that wither ability. It's almost like as you were thinking about your ancestors who their bodies became overcome by these different mushrooms, where you pass over things, any sort of other living plant matter starts to wither a little bit around you and go through a rapid decay. And then in the same way, mushrooms start to come up and insects come up and chew away those plants. You notice as you stay too long in one place, it seems to accelerate that decay.
Yes, I feel rage at those who killed my brethren, and it appears to have manifested in a sort of an aura of death and decay. Decomposition follows me.
And with those realizations, you realize you're able to pass beyond that first gate. For people watching this, in Trophy Dark, there are rings, and Candlelight, there are gates of the afterlife that you're passing through. And you find yourselves now on the outside of the cathedral, which before you would barely glimpse as you were fleeing for your lives. You were being chased by that monstrous stag and those mushroom-infested treasure hunters and other creatures of the swamp you didn't even have a moment to recognize. But now you get to look at your surroundings a little bit more. And it's actually quite beautiful. You see the outside of the cathedral and why it really is a cathedral. These are massive trees that they have grown in the shape that other cathedrals made by human hands would be built over years and years. And this seems to have somehow shaped itself into this exquisite forms where there are flowers and big broad leaves almost forming like stained glass patterns and gaps in the sides of it as the light comes down from above, illuminating this center of the swamp where everything around it is dark. But as you step outside, another memory, not too distant, comes back to you of that stag that pursued you, that guardian of this place. And this is where, if you would like to do flashback rolls, we can do that to see how you escaped it. Or you can kind of contemplate this form for a minute and kind of tell me what you think. As you see on the edges of this clearing right outside the cathedral, waiting between the trees, even in your spectral form, it's still several times your height. Antlers made out of every part of the swamp, hanging with moss, and it snorts, and its eyes are glowing a faint green, and those spores come out of its nostrils and infuse the air again. It stomps its hooves, and you hear crunching of bodies of other lost treasure hunters who have sunk into the mire underneath its feet.
I'm thinking like there was definitely something about the encounter with the stag that was really difficult for me beyond just its size and grandiose nature. I think like maybe I felt like it knew me or something like that, just because of the fact that my horns ended up turning into stag horns from the mushrooms. I'm thinking like there was something that was imprinted on me from this interaction. And I don't know if it's like that I tried to stare it down or like I mocked it or I don't know. But yeah, something made it imprint on me.
Yeah, let's... Muted myself. Sorry, just as a reminder, at any point in time, you can use your abilities. You can use your dirges, which are basically spells, to try to overcome these obstacles as you're retracing your steps. Or we can do flashbacks.
Are we encountering it or we're just remembering it?
So it's sort of both in the spirit realm. You're retracing your steps the way you came, and you realize that it's still where it last was, where it chased you inside the cathedral. It's still there outside. So if you want some sort of insight into what happened, you can do a flashback, or you can try to overcome it as you are and use your whatever abilities you have.
I want to try to use my ritual and embody the form of it.
Cool. Oh, and one more rule thing to mention, just because. Oh, you're okay. Yeah, Akie, Dua is at 4 despair. Once you reach 5 despair, you can do what's called haunting, where you basically try to reduce it by sort of doing ghostly things and kind of expelling your energy out into the environment as a ghost and causing disturbances and shaking off some of that power that's overcoming you. So just something to keep track of. But yeah, let's look at a roll to use that dirge. So let's go into the PDF. So this dirge is a lament you're going to unleash on the world around you. So it's going to be a risk roll, including a dark dice. So the dark dice is because of the danger of that dirge, because even using it, there's a risk of it overwhelming you and that power overcoming you a little bit more. But what skills do you have that would help you?
The first one is embodiment.
Oh, literally, nice.
Because of my doom.
Right, because that's how you died. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I misunderstood. So do you want to use a dirge? Sorry.
Yes, I want to use the dirge of taking the form of the thing.
Got it. Awesome. So 1 dice for the skill of embodiment.
Okay.
And 1 dark dice for using the dirge.
And could you remind me? Am I trying to roll, like, what is the goal in the numbers? Am I trying to overroll my despair?
Oh, so basically what we'll do, we gather a pool of dice. Where there's actually another way you might still get another dice, and then you're going to be rolling and looking at the highest result.
Okay.
So a 6 is going to be a success. A 4 to 5 is sort of a success, but at a cost or complication, and a 3 or less is a failure.
And how do I know what my hope is also?
So when you succeed, basically when you succeed, that will have a chance of raising your hope.
But your hope starts off at 1 as well?
Your hope starts at 0, actually.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so you have to succeed to raise it. Yep.
Okay.
So the last thing you can do to add another dice, if you want to, is make a desperate prayer. So this is a way that if there is any sort of like, it could be a little deity that you had. It could just be like you wish for luck. Could be a relative that you call out to, or it could be one of the sisters that the forms you kind of faintly saw in this cathedral. But if you want to sort of put a prayer out there and see what entity answers, that might help you in this, but that's totally up to you.
I think I'm just going to go with embodiment and my ritual itself. No
Cool.
prayers. No prayers for the fallen. So I'm rolling 2 of these dark dice.
1 light dice from the skill, and then 1 dark dice from the dirge.
And so we're just looking at whichever is higher.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Dark was 6. That was the highest.
Okay, so you do succeed at this because it's a 6, but because it's the dark die that was higher, what was the light one?
A 2.
Okay. Yeah, because the dark dice was the highest one, that's actually going to increase your despair. Don't worry, it does. It starts out, again, from the worst place, and theoretically it can get better, but you can always bring that despair down. Just keep that in mind. So it's not instantly game over. But
so anytime a dark dice is high, that's essentially going to tell us that despair is going up.
yeah, if it's the highest, and I should clarify, if it's higher than your current despair. So your despair was at 2 before, yeah, so it increases to 3.
Mm-hmm.
You do get another dirge from that happening, but describe what that looks like. What does your companion see?
You said this is a giant stag, correct? And you said like green like mossy antlers and stuff. I mean, you see me grow, like you see my ghost kind of translucent form grow in humanoid shape to the size of the stag, and then just sort of elongate and morph into an all fours, pretty much a matching mirror of the stag. And I'm thinking the reason I'm doing this is to try and hope to get it to go away, or like get it to stand down so that we can progress.
Which it does. I should have framed that better with asking what you wanted to do by doing that. But you rolled a 6, so you do succeed. So you expand 3 times your height. Your natural horns grow out to these massive moss-hung antlers. You mirror this thing, and somehow, by matching its form, it stands down. But it's been here for, maybe when the cathedral took form, this ancient guardian of this place, chasing away intruders or vanquishing them when they got too close. And now that you've matched its form, it just kind of like bows its antlers at you, and it kind of snorts, and there's another cloud of those spores, which also kind of touch on your form. And then
I try to snort back at it, like in a confrontational way, but just like dry mushroom dust comes out when I do, because I'm just pretending to be it. I'm not actually it.
It's almost like it goes to lock antlers with you, but it just stops face to face. And there's this moment where these 2 massive stags just facing there, both spectral sort of, although this one you realize it's still kind of in the spirit world, which is what you're seeing, and it's still there, kind of those layers at the same time. And you see it bow its antlered head and then kind of turn and almost plunge down into the bog and sink back down. And you see the tips of its horns kind of still sticking out like small mossy trees, and it comes to rest, almost like ribs coming up out of the moss, almost forming some pillars that you could now walk through if you wish to. Dua, what do you do when you see this happen?
Dua will note this moment, this tableau where the two stags have squared off against each other, and Basil's stag has caused the other one to turn away and to sink into the bog, and will think it is good because my anger only increases, and I had thought to perhaps cause it to wither and die at risk to myself. But seeing her success and the way that it is done, I realize it is good, and that we should go further, go through this temporary temple that the stag's unsubmerged horns leave for us to follow.
I forgot to clarify one rule. I don't want to jump off of that. I want to come right back to that. But Skye, your hope also goes up because it was a 6. I'm remembering how my own game works. It's cool. So that's the thing, is both can go up at the same time, because facing these tragedies or these terrifying things in this in-between limbo spirit world may fill you with both hope and despair. It may change you at the same time. So mark that on there.
It's despair because you're like, this would have been awesome if it happened while I was alive.
Right.
But I'm dead. So there's nobody to go home and tell about this to, except, my friend Dua got to see it. Thank goodness for Dua.
But I, too, am dead. And the more we move, the more I suspect our path takes us further into the realm of death and away from those struggles we once had in life.
I need to be talking in my voice more.
You need to be talking in your voice more, Basil.
Remember, hold on to who you were.
Yeah, remember. Have you already forgotten?
Yeah. I'm just a shroom of myself.
Oh, wow.
Speaking of mushrooms, though, do
That's
as
rough.
you
I
see
think my
those,
despair just went up because of that joke.
yeah, as you see those pillars, those mossy pillars from what used to be the antlers' horns, you recall the other things that you witnessed here that drove you here further into the cathedral, and looming up back out of the mire and coming around the sides of those mossy pillars are these masses of just rotted wood and fungus, and you can see here and there pieces of armor or what used to be a limb still holding a weapon, but everything has just been overgrown with vines, and their faces are distorted, blooming with different flowers, crawling with centipedes and creatures of the swamp, and their voices are just gurgling and distorted, and there's voices of despair, of tragedy, of these other fallen warriors who didn't make it any further in. And they start to lunge towards you once more, hoping to drive you back. What would you like to do?
Dua, whose doom was being driven mad, but who is now a skilled shade in the discipline of calm, will walk amongst his fallen brothers and sisters. He will let them try to jump up against him, but he shall conjure just above his head foxfire, an alluring light to follow, and using his identity as a poet, he will attempt to create a benediction for these restless spirits here in the swamp.
Awesome. So this will be, so I don't like to jump into the rules after such an awesome description, but
Not to worry.
technically you can
I need
do,
to know what they are as well.
no, it's, I just want to say it all just counts, but you get one light dice from any one of those skills. So I think, yeah, I like that it's
well,
calm, but it could be the poet as well.
I think it's for what I'm affecting. It will be the poet for the color of just walking into this mob of quasi undead. Oh, this mob of quasi undead. I just thought it would be cool that he's been so maddened that he no longer really reacts to such things. And so that's one light die for the poet, or that's the dirge. That's a dark die.
Dark die for the dirge, a light die for the ability, and then it's up to you. But I'm thinking, especially because if you're saying that some of these are your ancestors, you could make a prayer. That could be what your benediction is too.
I think my benediction will be a prayer.
So you can add another light dice for that.
Oh boy, this can
And
get
then-
messy. So 2 light die, 1 dark die. Okay.
And I, again, trying to play my game properly, myself and other players, might discuss for a second our ideas of what might answer. So in Trophy Dark, these are devil's bargains, where you're trying to get an extra dice, and it's usually something bad that will happen. And here it's a little more open-ended. It's sort of, you don't entirely know who might answer. Skye, do you have any ideas of what beings might hear his prayer?
Yoda?
That's not canon in this world. Sorry.
Oh, Doya. The goddess of the swamp.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, no, I thought Adoy.
Adoy.
Oh, I like Adoy.
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 Yeah, the goddess of the swamp.
Gods of the swamp.
I was
like
also
that.
thinking, because I will be the plea that I will make will be to our most ancientest of ancestors in the ancestral ground to guide these warriors home, those who belong to us and those who have just tarried here. But it's possible that one of these strange sisters could hear and respond and take these knights into their service.
I'm just going to say that Adoya, or whichever name we settled on.
Adoy. Adoy.
Adoy.
Adoy.
Do you guys remember
I
Doy
said it all
as a
wrong.
thing?
The tone of this game is actually sorry. No, I think she is one of the sisters. I think she is goddess of the swamp, totally. And hold on to that because we may come across that in the journey to come. But absolutely, I think it's really cool.
You did introduce that there would be humorous moments, like you
that
called that.
Could be okay. Fair.
You picked the wrong two.
You backed
the wrong horses.
Two weird horses.
Well, I mean, Basil. I mean, knowing Basil's character was quite a funny character while living, so it's fitting. Yeah. But yeah, let's see what happens with the dice.
Time to roll. Two light,
two light, and one dark. Mm-hmm.
Rolling. A 2 and a 6 on the light, a 5 on the dark.
Nice. So a success because of the 6. So you increase your hope by 1.
Ooh, 1 hope.
Mm-hmm.
This is exciting. Okay.
Yeah. Glimmer of hope. Describe what you kind of did, but what does this look like as you conjure this foxfire and they do start to follow you or make way?
I will beseech the great grandfathers and grandmothers of my warrior tribe and say, grandfather, grandmother, those who sit on the high council, greatest warriors from whom all our glory flows. These soldiers here have lain in this swamp, and they must find their way home. Guide them as you guided me on my path, and perhaps my death will then not have been in vain, but rather I will have been a shepherd to those who needed benediction. And he will cast the foxfire and send it above his head first, so that he is like illumined, and so that all the soldiery can see him, and then he will send it slowly through the like rib, the antler cathedral, and send the ghosts, and I think they'll follow the foxfire.
And the foxfire makes a sound that goes, Mozilla, 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 Mozilla.
I thought you were gonna. What does the foxfire say? But all those are appropriate.
That's another saint now. Mozilla, the fox, mother of foxes.
Mm-hmm. Mozilla, mother of foxes, Adoya.
Yep.
We're building actually really great names and really great lore for within the Flocculent Cathedral. So there will be people playing this later on that will thank us for Mozilla and Adoy. So sorry, not sorry.
Write all those down. So the way is clear. I also think the foxfire is now floating above them. It's almost like they all start to glow with their own light as well. Yeah. And you see more and more of them starting to rise up out of the swamp. And instead of pursuing people who are coming into the cathedral, they've turned around and they're starting to make this procession back out alongside of you all. Some of them very slowly as they're still bringing their forms back up, but you're able to move on, and you see the last pair of those antlers, or maybe their ribs from the sunken stag, is forming another gate. This one is out of moss-covered bone, and you're able to pass through that gate as well, which is past the second gate. And let me find where I have my notes on here. Again, at any point, if any of these things you feel like you want to revisit in a flashback, that's another way to flesh it out. But you come past that place. You see under your feet as you're walking through that last gate, it was almost like a small stone wall that you'd climbed over to get to this final stage before the cathedral. You're walking back over that now, leaving the sunken stag behind you, and the sort of mushroom encased warriors making their way up and coming behind you. The swamp starts to clear out a little bit now, and I'm going to say that light that was in the center of the swamp, it seemed like it was daylight, maybe it was moonlight earlier, but now that you're further away from that thickest part of the swamp, you see overhead it is nighttime, and there's stars overhead, and you hear the sounds of frogs, all kinds of different frogs and marsh birds and other beasts. The song of the fen, just full blown, surrounding you, every kind of sound of a creature, insect imaginable. And you see a place where you took camp. You come back to this sunken well. These fallen statues had been your shelter from clouds of biting insects and thick, oppressive heat in the middle of the swamp during the day. And now it's in shadow and it's cool. And you see a place where you made a camp before.
Here we toasted bravery, shared our meat and bread. Wait, what's the next line? Anyway.
Yeah, preview of the Candlelight theme song right there. The Dirge of the Lost.
We see, I'm thinking this was a night where the madness that fell Dua at the end maybe started to show its presence, as well as the moment where my thoughts about the sickle began to turn very selfish, and not of us returning to whoever it was who sent us on this mission with the sickle, but instead, so I'm thinking we had an argument the last night that we camped, and maybe we just kind of like, buried the hatchet in the morning and just kept journeying on. But I think I started maybe being more secretive and not sharing as much about my plans. And Dua and I had a nightly ritual of sitting fireside and sharing stories and poems of the old legends of forest and swamp. And that night I didn't like come out to the fire, and he got very like impatient with me about that, and I got very defensive, and maybe there was some sort of madness that started showing up in the way he was reacting to me.
So before it goes too much further into that, this definitely sounds like a flashback, because there's definitely something coming back across this place now. You realize there's something you didn't notice then, maybe when you were away. So the risk is that facing this may cause that despair to come up again and grip you even more as this place grabs you. You could sink literally. So it'll be a risk roll. But let's start there with what skills that you have, or rather what memories will be relevant to this. Let's see if we have anything on here.
For me, it would be concealment.
Because you were...
This is just for Basil, right?
So here's the interesting thing.
By contributing to
this.
Yeah,
it's for Basil,
flashback.
but Akie, you can participate in it as well if you want to, and add a dark dice to it. The risk is that you are both potentially affected by the result of the dark dice.
And Akie, please feel free to change anything that I just began to paint.
Oh, no,
Okay.
I'm fine with that. I think we had discussed that, or it had been put before us that at this place right before we got to the swamp in front of the cathedral. We had strange dreams. So perhaps I was already troubled mentally. Maybe it was the resonance of so many disturbed warrior souls that had not passed on to the ancestral ground just up ahead. I hadn't seen them yet, but I sensed some a disturbance in the force. I sensed deep unrest, and it caused me to feel deep unrest. So, yes, I agree with the story, and also, were I to contribute something to this flashback, it might be guardian skilled in vigilance. I don't know. Does it have to be a despair? Oh, it's a memory, right?
So so basically, the player making the flashback is going to do the risk roll, and if you were basically because you're a part of that scene, you can add a dark dice to it. So you can also roll a dark dice that will add to the result.
I don't know why I would. It seems dangerous, but I will. Skilled in vigilance, I think, is
so for you actually. Sorry, it's not actually a skill for you. It's just simply you were acknowledging that you were a part of it, and you might be affected by.
Sure. Yes.
By it,
good.
Yeah. But that makes sense. So you get to add a dark dice for Skye. For Basil, you have a light dice from concealment. Do you wish
Sorry,
any sort of prayer in this moment?
there's one thing I'm a little confused on. You said there's something that we didn't notice before, so I don't know if that connects to concealment for me.
Sure, that could. Yeah, the idea is by doing a flashback, you have the potential, if it's a successful roll, you can learn something about what happened before.
Oh, cool. Okay.
That's sort of the theme of it, yeah.
Sure.
But, yeah, and again, up to you if there's something that Basil believed in, or if it's some of these entities you just encountered.
Then I don't think the concealment part is as relevant because it's not about something that I'm not looking for more information about the thing that I was already knowing I was hiding, which is my plan. I think I'm looking for insight, which I have being a companion. So trying to read the room, if you will. Mm-hmm. And I'll make a prayer to Mozilla, the fox mother, since I just noticed Dua light that foxfire. I'll make a prayer to her to show me Mozilla. I know there's more to what happened in this scene before me. Show me the light. So what am I rolling again?
You were rolling. So now that gives you a second light dice. So 2 light dice. And then because it's a flashback, gotcha. Yeah, Akie's gonna add a dark dice.
Should I roll that or should
go ahead.
Basil?
You roll the dark, Akie.
Mm-hmm. Right, and also at any point, Skye, you can also add another dark dice if you want to. It's just at risk to yourself.
Well, I'm sorry, I rolled a 6.
That's all right. And I rolled 2 3s, which together equal 6, but that's not how this game works.
So the interesting thing is, we'll get to what this means in the story, but for both of you, both your hope and despair go up. And we'll get into...
Hope goes up because it was a number that was higher than our hope.
Because it was a 6.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Higher than our despair.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
Brings it up. Mm-hmm.
I'm at 5 despair, baby.
Which means you're going to have to start doing some of them, whatever it is, to haunting.
Mm-hmm. But,
so, success, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to close the door because I just heard myself on your
Oh, let me
headphones.
close mine too. Sorry.
No, it's all right.
Pause for that.
How rapidly can I bring my despair down now that I'm at 5?
So you can at any point do a haunting. Let me scroll up to that, which is basically you have to roll under it.
Okay,
Which is easier at first as it's higher.
sure.
So haunting, basically you're channeling that despair into the world around you, trying to shake it off. Or, of course, I realized I said that to you and Skye, so she's gonna sing that song. But
I
unleashing your
thought
despair.
of it and didn't do it.
Oh wow,
Quite
that
proud
was
of myself.
it's rubbing off on me. Nice.
Yeah.
But basically, if you roll below your despair, let me describe what you do. If you roll below it, you can decrease your despair. The risk is if you happen to roll above your despair, it will also increase it.
Well, I'm at 5, so
It's a small risk. Yeah. Do you want to? Let's narrate what happened here first, and then that can
Sure,
definitely. Yeah. So, so Basil, you call on Mozilla, the mother of foxes. Is this a sister that you'd heard of before, or had you just realized that's who her form was in this spirit world? Like, this is the first time that you saw her?
I think I'd heard of her before because I'm definitely, Basil's definitely interested in the animal world and often was followed by animals. So she definitely subscribed to the like the animal like gods and goddesses.
Mm-hmm.
Followed him on Instagram at least.
I'm also wondering if part of what we have forgotten about our journey into the swamp was that we slowly started to pick up the names of the sisters we didn't know. So Mozilla may be one we did know, but Adoy may not have been one we knew. And
It's Adoya now. You guys keep saying Adoya, so we're gonna make it Adoya.
Well, it's Adoya, depending on which aspect of the deity of the swamp that you call upon. Mm-hmm. Yeah, how about that? Cash me outside. And
that's another.
So anyway,
deity.
yeah, I'm thinking
Cash
maybe
me out.
cash me out. That maybe that contributed to our the knowledge of the names of the sisters, which we collected as we entered the swamp, started to fray our sanity at the edges. Certainly my sanity.
Definitely some of those weird dreams, maybe some weird speaking of the names in our sleep and waking each other up, being like, what do you keep saying? Something about Adoya, Adoy.
No.
I think that's the insight that comes with looking back into this is realizing, like, now you've seen what was much deeper in the swamp. You've seen that the sisters are real, that there are these beings that are much older that live here. There are the powers you can call on to aid you. There's more that you can accomplish, even though your bodies have died. So that does bring each of you a little bit of hope. Skye, make sure I'm just gonna write it on your tab there. Is yours at 2?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I'll put that in there.
I haven't been adding to the one on the keeper just because it's been hard for me to figure out where that goes. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, as long as it's somewhere. But yeah, for Dua, you wanted to haunt.
Yes.
So in the rules, the sort of examples just as ideas, but you say ultimately what it is. You're creating a momentary, like, magical or supernatural effect around you. You might just be like unleashing a wailing sound. You might be animating the plants and animals around you. You might be leaving signs of warning to other people coming this way, but you're basically trying to release some of that despair that's threatening to overcome you. So yeah, what does that look like?
I will place my ghostly fingers. We've come out of the swamp and we're on dry land. Where we
You're
camped, or like at
yeah,
least not in a bog anymore.
right. Yeah, you're like midway through the swamp. You're kind of at a bit of a clearing where you made camp.
Right. So, but the ground is not like it's
Mhm.
not like an inch of muddy water. It's
Right.
solid enough.
Right.
Just a little dampness. Just
Mhm.
a
A
little.
little damp.
Mhm.
And there's a wall or something to that effect, right? You said a stone wall.
Yeah, you just come past that, but yeah. Oh well, huh?
A stone well. That's right. In
Mhm.
in the campsite.
Mhm.
Okay. I will place my hands in the earth around the ground of the stone well, and I will close my eyes, and I will release some of this now almost uncontrollably pent up pressure of rage and despair into the earth, and I think it will cause the ground to shake and crack, and the well to split, and some of the rocks to tumble, and if you want further color, maybe brackish, foul-smelling fluid will flow to the top and overflow onto the mound. I don't know. Sure.
Yeah, it's now a cursed well. That's for sure. No.
I cursed it.
It's a right shame that the cat's not there to provide a aromatherapy
That's right.
experience of this.
Mhm. So roll a single dice.
Come on, don't be 6. For God's sake, it's a 5.
So
That's
as long
equal
as
to my despair.
right, yeah. So it is equal. So it's still hanging in there. It is not above it. It does not increase, but it is not below it. Something is still keeping you just on the edge there. It seems like
This is horrible.
you can always keep doing it. I mean, you can do it in a different way. At any point, you want to interrupt to haunt more. It's the
Sure.
only risk is that it's a 6, so it's totally up
Sure.
to you.
So unlikely.
This is a ghost game.
2 or 3
Please
6s.
interrupt.
I
Please
will.
haunt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, well,
Or if you want to, I'm just saying.
I'll do it again. I was. Yeah, I didn't. I thought maybe you'd want to move on, but maybe I collapse and
Only if you want to, you know. No one's trying to pressure you.
I flicker, but nothing really happens,
Mhm.
and then I will. My substance will connect, sort of like melt into the ground, and the manifestation that was already occurring is going to become even more apparent, and all the living things around the well will start to brown and die and wither as I attempt once more to haunt this fucking well. Okay, gonna roll a dark die. It's a 2.
Ooh, there we go. Okay. So
Bring that despair on down. You've got to bring that despair on down. You
So-
haunted.
Is there a consequence for this die roll, or is this purely to bring
So-
down despair?
it brings down the spirit. I guess the only other consequence is that one of your dirges goes away with that loss of that dark despairing power.
Fine. Well, I really liked Foxfire, but
It can be whichever one. Yeah.
I'm gonna get rid of Feast, and the listeners can wonder what that means. You'll never know unless you play. All right,
Or unless your despair comes back up, you might gain it.
right. Then I might get Feast again for sure.
Yeah. Always a temptation given
To
to
have
that
more
power.
power, yes.
Mhm.
It corrupts.
Yeah. So So we're almost at the end of this gate. We might take a quick break. There's 2 after that, but they might not be as long. But the other things, as that well splits, the stones crack, and that brackish water comes out, and all the plant life just kind of withers around it. Basil, you see that some of this like dark energy, this rot, just kind of seep out of your companion again. He seems a bit more buoyant and light again. And you both see you've been making this prayer to Sister Mozilla, and you look up and you realize there are more statues around this well a little further out where you had camped. And one of them is a statue. It's statue of a woman with big flowing dress covered in leaves and like a bird on her shoulder, different plant life, but her head is that of a fox.
Nice.
If you each would like to describe another statue that you see, you can go ahead and mention that too. Might be something that you knew from when you were living, or it could be one of the other ones you just encountered.
Do you already have any of the other sisters' like identities picked out, Gabriel, or we get to select those? Cool.
Mm-hmm. I do have things I can roll on for fun, like tables, but it's always interesting to see what comes from your characters first. But if you want random ideas, we can do that too.
I'll say that one of the goddesses we know to be named Frenzia, and she is like the wild mother, sort of like the goddess of chaos and disarray, and she's like, she has a long flowing dress, but it's very like tattered, and in her palms, which are like outstretched like this, there's like flame in this one, and then like a lightning bolt in the other one, and her hair is partially down and very like messy, wavy, disheveled, and then the other part of it is kind of up in like a crown of sort of like wind almost. So it's sort of like it's blown, windswept.
That's really cool.
Frenzia.
And Dua will remember the goddess. Oh boy, don't have a good name. Looking around my surroundings. Anyway, she's the goddess. I think we're gonna call her Ergos. The goddess Ergos. And she is the goddess of flowers, cups, and tears. And her statue is a tall, cloaked figure with the hood pulled somewhat back and the head turned upward to the sky, visible tears running down to fall into 2 cups that are in her hands. The cups overflow, and the overflowing water falls down to a beautiful, verdant garden at her feet. Anybody remember what I just said?
No, I was just
like
taken in by.
Ergos?
That was amazing. How did you do that? How do you do that with your brain?
How did you do that with your brain? Well, part of it is not remembering what you said. So it was Ergos, flowers, tears, flowers, cups, and tears.
Yeah. Tears flow into the cups, flow down out of the cups, into the verdant flower garden. It's amazing.
That's so pretty.
And tears. That's weird.
So,
It's gonna give me nightmares. All right.
oh no, seeing the faces of these deities, you've already called on some on the way, and they've answered. And these, as you face them, you hadn't noticed it while you were making camp before, and you were caught up in your arguments and your own worries about the journey ahead. But now there's nothing in between you and them. You see both the statue and sort of the form of them glowing much brighter in this realm of the afterlife. And you're aware as you see them, they look back and see you as well. And they each have a task for you. But first, we're going to have you each make a reckoning roll. This is another stage of moving beyond, further out of this, beyond this gate. Again, if you roll below your despair, your hope goes up as well.
This is one dark die.
One dark die.
Basil, after you.
All right. It is a 3. So under my despair and over my hope.
So it's under your despair is the only thing that matters for that. So that increases your hope by 1.
Excellent. And now I shall roll. And hope that I'm not suddenly rolling great for the first time in my life. It's a 2.
Nice. Beautiful. So how does we're going to flesh it out a little more, but something changes on each of you as you see these forms and recognize in this realm sort of who these beings are for a moment, and they see you. What's a manifestation of that hope in you? How do you change? Because I've been describing the terrible things that have happened.
And can it just be one of the goddesses that this is in relation to?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'm thinking, since I described that Frenzia lady, she sounds pretty dope, and she sounds very aligned with Basil's motivations as a young and an older person. So I'm thinking Basil sort of gains a bit of a renewed sense of like, yes, I can do this. I can get this weapon out of this forest. And as I do, I look down and 2 sort of like glowing glyphs, one of the lightning bolt and then one of the flame sort of appear, like crawling up my wrists into my hands in like a pretty cool and sparkling way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet. Okay, so I guess I have to deal with Ergos. So Ergos looks at me and through yes, okay, great. Ergos looks at me and my ghostly eyes suddenly sting with bright tears. The tears fall down my face, and as they fall, they cause streaks of brightness to be like cut through my darkened form. The brightness spreads. Also, the manifestation at my feet temporarily, when the tears hit it, cause the dead things to grow back up. And it actually, as the things grow suddenly higher, they also push my being higher from the ground. So I'm raised up on this bed of flowers, and I hear faintly the sound of swords against shields and warriors singing. I can't quite make out the words, but I hear a song welcoming a warrior's home.
Wow. And it's coming from behind you, and you realize that all of those warriors that you summon that foxfire, and they'd come up out of the mud, who've been making their way slowly behind you, have been continuing to follow your path out of the swamp, and that's them responding to what just happened as well. Maybe some
Wow.
who are behind you, some are who are ahead. Yeah,
Creepy. Awesome.
that's so cool. Um, and one more thing that you each noticed too. By the way, I'm remembering I had some amazing people contribute to this game and write all these evocative tables of details so that the person run it wouldn't have to think about it like I'm trying to do and just look and pull cool stuff into it. And then you have not been using them at all. But as these things are happening, you realize not only are these sisters, these beings, watching you as they're coming out of their statues, but up in the trees there are birds, birds who are roosting and just sleeping during the night, but they kind of seem to have woken up and opened their eyes. And there's owls up in the trees. There are herons and marsh birds kind of perched at the edges of the reeds in the swamp. And you know that they're looking at you because their eyes glow like starlight, almost like this is the spirit form of these birds who can see you in this realm as well. And they all just seem to look at you and kind of nod their heads and then just continue to peacefully watch you from a distance. And I'm scrolling. Sorry. One more thing.
Scrolling. Scrolling.
Baby, let's scroll.
You know, I don't think I can even add. The things you described are too beautiful right now. I don't want to mess it up. There's this moment of calm. You know, these birds watching you. There's starlight above. I would say all that almost din of like the nightlife of the swamp. The frogs croaking, the insects buzzing. All of it seems to kind of quiet down and settle in this very peaceful moment. And you see this third gate. Which actually is an arch that was not far from the well. Nightlife of the swamp, yes. Made out of stone, not as covered in moss and as decayed as the other statues and things you've seen. There's actually the remains of the wall next to it. Maybe used to be a structure, and there's a door that is there that is still intact. Very sturdy oak door. There's a knocker on it with a face made out of leaves, maybe from a less marshy place. Maybe before this place was a swamp. And that door before you just kind of swings very quietly open, and you see beyond beams of moonlight are hitting the ground. You can see the further edges of the swamp ahead of you where you came in. And if you guys would like, how are we doing? You want to take a quick break here? You want to continue on?
Sure, we can take a break. I'm almost out of tea.
Fair enough.
If it works for you guys, but
Yeah.
I'm in no.
You can go
time
see
crunch right now. So.
go see my girl Ergos for flowers, cups, and tears.
Yeah, I'm gonna go make some tears use the tears to steep the flowers and put
Tears
that
of your enemies.
subsequent tea into cups.
Awesome.
Oh, that's the way. Maybe I was just thinking about tea this entire time.
Yeah.
When you said cups, I was pretty sure there was going to be a coffee reference just because it's you.
Right.
But then
I was just I was pulling just like looking at things on the desk.
That's great. Cool. Let's do 5 minutes if that's cool with you guys.
Yep.
And there'll be 2 more gates to pass through.
Yeah.
Awesome.
see you in a few.
Ta-ta.
Hey, welcome back. We're running Candlelight, and we're trying a new version of this where we actually just take control of the game.
Yes.
And, yeah.
The inmates are running the asylum.
Yeah, so it's our game now. Oh. How about that?
Oh, wait, no, Gabriel's back here.
That's so great. Complete tone switch. Like, this is a horror game. Actually, it's a musical. I mean, it would be pretty cool. I can't pretend.
I mean, I didn't bust out the automaton yet. I was really...
Ooh, when you do a dirge, I really hope to hear it in that form.
There you go.
I've been doing it wrong. I should have said, you do a dirge, what does it sound like? Because, oh man, yep.
I'm just gonna be like the log lady. Just hold this for the rest of the game, just to make sure it's a little more goth. I realize that I'm kind of the antithesis, the opposite. I'm not, but this makes me more.
Yeah. It matches with what we described.
Yeah.
Real quick, are we good on time for a little bit?
Oh yeah, I'm great.
Okay, I forgot to check sooner. All right, so yeah, feel free to sing those dirges if so inspired. No pressure, but
let's see.
So you pass through that third gate. But I did mention before that those sisters, in seeing their presences there, they have tasks for you, or at least in seeing you and seeing what you're trying to do. And feel free to interrupt me and modify this, whatever. But for Dua, what was the name of that sister we just described? It was Ergos?
Yes.
That's what we said. Yeah. Ergos sees you.
And Frenzia, right?
Frenzia.
Ergos, Frenzia, Mozilla, and Adoya is who we've named so far.
It could be my internet.
Any better?
Yes. I didn't know if it was me or you, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. Bit of a delay. Yeah.
Just the Matrix.
Well, we're in between realms here. We're in half in the spirit realm, half in the physical realm, you know.
That's right.
But Ergos sees you and sees the newly risen warriors in the swamp behind you, and calls out to you and says, I see you, and I see those who came before you, and I see how you have brought them back up to a new purpose. And as you're trying to leave this place, there are others who are making their way in, just like you did, and seeking to steal the secrets and the treasures of this place. But if you wish to leave and to really meet your ancestors and know who they were, I want you to continue to guide them and repel these invaders who are coming into this sanctum, and keep them from reaching the center of that cathedral. So, to you how you respond to that, but that has sort of been put forward. And for Basil, Frenzia, the deity with the lightning and the flames, sees you bearing that essence of that moon sickle, and in this sort of clearing of the swamp, with the moonlight coming down, it's almost like at this point, I'm just adding in that the essence of that sickle is almost infusing into yours as you describe those sigils and stuff appearing on you or next to you, and says to you, if you wish to truly embody the power of this relic and know what its purpose was, go forth and find among those invaders is one who could be a real hero, who could be awakened to a better destiny than to become another fallen explorer like yourself and like those other ones in the swamp. So another thing put before you if you wish to pursue it. but you pass through that third gate. Scrolling again. The ground scrolls underneath you. You see past that gate, it's almost like there are cobblestones that are glowing, also like they're lit up by the moonlight. And you see before you, and you remember how on your way in here, you faced many obstacles of the swamp itself. As the brambles of the fen started to grow thick around your feet and try to pull you down into the mire, as all the insects came alive and tried to swarm and cover your bodies and literally eat you alive, as the heat and the humidity of this environment threatened to overwhelm your bodies and destroy you before you could even get further. And you see, I'm going to say, if you guys want to change this, jump in, but you see bodies of other people who traveled here with you earlier on in the journey who did not make it further on. And you see them floating and bloated in the swamp, being consumed by those insects. Do you want to add anything to those characters? Are there any characters who came with you that you want to name?
I love naming a character. So I think there was one named Forrester. We weren't sure if that was his first name or last name. He never told us. It was always just Forrester. And he was very prideful about how much he knew about the wilderness, but yet whenever it came down to any question regarding the wilderness, he always seemed to make bold choices and big mistakes. And it was one of those that took him.
And also lying in the swamp, we see an archer whose name was Cynthia Guillarme, but everyone called her Guy. And she died while fending off some attack. But even in death, or as she was being eaten alive, as we made our escape, her body is frozen with her an arrow knocked in her bow, and somehow still pulled back, almost as if she's ready to fire.
Yeah, it's almost as if the roots, like mangrove roots coming out of the swamp and vines, had just come across and frozen her body in place in that gesture, unable to release it. And in this realm, again, you see both the physical landscape and those bodies, and you see in the spirit realm, you see their forms flickering in and out, contorted and confused, because they also died in this place. And you see that they're in a much worse state than you, and before long, they might become ghosts of this place forever, to haunt it and drive away other intruders. But they both look at you in confusion and fear and maybe accusation. You're not sure, like kind of questioning why you left them behind and where you're going, and if you're going to leave them behind again. What do you do?
You said their bodies were floated in the swamp?
Sorry, I guess that all got jumbled together. I'm thinking Forrester that you mentioned was floating in the swamp. And then sorry,
Guy.
Guy, yeah.
Cynthia, Guy, yeah.
Yeah, I like that description that she was like frozen in place. Maybe she was getting ready to launch an arrow. Yeah, feel free to modify stuff if you want.
I think Forrester also was a scout, because I feel like that makes sense with the whole pompous I know nature thing. But yeah, I think just to be kind to them, if we can move their bodies, I would probably try to at least move Forrester's body out of the swamp and lay him, beneath a tree or something, or in the reeds or something.
An excellent idea. I will maybe over here, this tree that has so captured the livid likeness of Guy, and then perhaps I could perform the dirge of animate, in which one awakens a sleeping tree and have it consume these bodies, and perhaps free the spirits to travel on.
That's perfect. Yeah, because that will, on your own, in your spectral form, you can probably try and tug at them and do what you can, but that would really ensure that happens. So that's going to be, using the dirge, it's going to be a risk roll. The risk is that, again, this is part of the swamp that is, it's just become enlivened over time. The land itself has risen up to defend itself, so it instinctively wants to grab you and pull you down as well. In a surprisingly jolly tune, I feel like we might be about to discover with the automaton.
I was just gonna play single drone notes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because we can't. Yeah, not in real time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so it'll be a risk roll. So you have a dark dice for using the dirge, and then any skills that you want to use.
I don't really have a applicable skill. Maybe calm, but
yeah, could be.
You know what? Maybe vigilance.
Okay. Yeah.
Standing guard over. I will not let my fallen companions lie in disarray in the swamp.
Mm-hmm. So that would be. Yeah, perfect. So that's another dice for that. And then if you want to invoke any of those deities, you could as well as another dice. Desperate prayer.
Well, certainly this seems like work for Adoya, goddess of the swamp.
Perfect.
Somehow this sound emanates from me.
It's really hard to get accurate notes. Sorry.
Oh no, it's all right.
Sorry, Gabriel.
I think that's when it's almost like in Dark Crystal, like the mystics do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And maybe the soldiers behind us join us in this.
Oh yeah.
This song. So what is it? One dark die, one
two
light, and two because we just parade. Adoy, Adoya. Oh well, dark die 5, light dies 3 and 3. So
ooh, fun.
Great.
So it is a success at a cost. You're muted, Skye. I didn't hear you.
I was just counting things in my head. Don't worry about it. Wasn't important.
It does succeed in doing what you wanted to do.
Okay.
But that power springs back up again as your song, and the song of all the spirits behind you, the warriors that are half submerged in the swamp, resounds, and I think strands of those swamp roots come up again and seep back into your being a little bit with a little bit more despair. Just a reminder that you're still not far from becoming trapped here as well.
Right. But
that gives you a dirge again. It's again out of character. The theme is using those powers. The land wants to grant you more powers. It wants to let you become a full-blown powerful being that will stay here forever and guard it. So it wants to give you more power.
So are you gonna bring that feast back?
I decided to pick Howl because of how upset I am.
So what does that put you at? You're back at
I'm back at
5.
5. Yeah.
So you can totally immediately try to reduce that if you want by haunting.
I guess that I will.
But actually, before that, you do succeed at pulling their bodies away with the ritual. If you want to describe any more there,
I think they disappear into this. The tree is awakened by our song, and the roots release Guy. Her arms fall, and then she's enfolded in the roots, as is Forrester, which is very appropriate. And the tree folds them into the trunk, and the branches and leaves cover their mouths and noses, and they recess. But actually, there's still a little. Their eyes are open in death, and they stare out. Their bodies stare out through a hole in the tree.
I think that too is maybe where that bit of despair comes back in, because even as they're released, that in their confusion, some of that just flows out and takes hold of you again.
Yeah.
Do you want to haunt?
Yes.
To reduce that?
I do want to haunt. I will walk back out into the swampy area that contains other bodies, some our companions, and perhaps some many strangers, and I will sink to my knees, and as a haunt, I will do a dirge
Nice.
and howl, and a restless wind will emanate from me, and generally disturb everything around us.
Awesome. So 1 dark dice.
And maybe all the birds take flight suddenly from the trees.
Yep.
1 dark die. Please be lower than 5. Come to daddy. That didn't roll. Come on, huh? Come on. It's a 3.
All right.
We live to haunt another day.
Or haunt forever if it doesn't go. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We die to haunt forever.
Yeah.
Well, I like howl now, so I'm going to keep that and get rid of inhabit. Okay.
Awesome.
Then I'll get up and I'll turn to Basil and go, I feel much better. Where were we?
I don't think they're smizing at us through that chink in the tree trunk. I don't get the impression that's a smile with your eyes thing. I think they're more trying to communicate something darker.
I will go over to the tree and place my hands on it and attempt to feel if our friends are trapped in there or if it is just the bodies in the tree and that has released them.
So I think, with the last roll, you did succeed if your goal was to let them pass on by dissolving their bodies. But I think, you can definitely see what is still there. There's still some of a disturbance because of, I'm thinking.
They're not shiny, happy ghosts.
Right. And I'm thinking that maybe because, again, the threat is that, or the risk of any of this is it has a potential to give you more hope or despair. So what about, how did you know these two? Clearly there's still something there. Were they good friends of yours, or do you just feel remorse at leaving them behind? And this is open-ended if either one of you.
I have an idea. I don't know if this is good or bad, but I am skilled in ruthlessness. So nice. I will go over to the trunk and see that though their spirits are freed, some element of some aspect of their living, perhaps they've lost some aspect of themselves that now the tree holds, and within my ruthlessness, I will say to them that, alas, I have been tasked and appointed by none other than the sister Ergos, goddess of
Flowers, cups,
flowers,
and tears.
cups, and tears. Your cups shall runneth over, my friends, for we are meant to keep those who would seek the sanctum of this swamp out, and you shall keep a watch here on this shore to prevent all others who would make our mistake.
That's so poetic. That's perfect.
Yeah, no particular
Yeah.
design for that. Just, I think it's a cool, sad, terrible thing to do.
Yeah. No.
And I also do like the idea that maybe we didn't know them very, very well.
Right.
And maybe there came a point when we went our own way, and maybe there was a choice that if we were going to get further, we were going to need to divide a bit. And maybe we decided to sort of, leave before they woke one morning.
Or even that they, with that idea that they were too scared to keep going. And they decided to keep, whatever you call that, rear camp or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They were like, we'll stay here. They didn't want to go.
Guard the perimeter, kind of.
They didn't want to go further in. They got too creeped out. But it seems they were overrun nonetheless.
And maybe that was part of the argument we had at the next campsite was sort of like, this is getting worse. Should we go back for them or go back and
never should have left them or something like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that. Yeah. So you could try to do something with that if you want, or that could just purely be description. That's totally cool either way. If you want to make more.
I'm okay with that just being description. Exposition.
Cool. We've just excised a small portion of our former traveling companions, and they will now stand sentinel forever in this swamp. I think that's
NBD.
Fittingly awful.
I think there's still you've succeeded in you've moved them out of the way. I think in this whole thing though, there's still what I'm getting at is a reckoning one way or another, because basically to pass through each stage, you're facing something that happened. I think you all mentioned enough things that would apply unless you want to add anything else to it. It could be simply like you said, it's not that they were your best friend, you left them behind. It's that you didn't even know them that well and they were trying to help, from that side and they didn't make it. You're still, I love having them watch there for you, which is kind of still what you're trying to do, is keep other people from meeting the same fate. But it still is tragic, and it's still a reminder that you're not all the way out yet. And it could be you too, just further on. So I would like for each of you to make a reckoning roll as well. So 1 dark dice.
I got a 3.
Nice. So that's below your despair, right?
Mm-hmm.
So your hope increases.
I got 4 hope.
I got a 4, so that is equal to my despair.
Cool. So it's not. Let me double check, because I wrote this. I remember everything. Give me a moment. While I'm looking that up, for Skye, for Basil, what? Again, I can mention a thing, or if you have anything in particular that changes in you with that increase in hope. Is there anything in your form that is further manifested?
Well, I still have my weird mushroom stag horns. and maybe maybe Ergos chooses to touch the horns with her tears and cups and flowers. So, I all of a sudden a little rain cloud comes by, and just 2 tears fall from the rain cloud into the manifestation of 2 cup-like things appearing above my horns, which then pour those tears down over the horns, which then beautiful little dandelions and tiny little bluebells just kind of burst out and adorn the mushroomy horns. And maybe it's more like moss, like you described with the actual stag at this point. We also didn't ever narrate that I did return back to my normal form after becoming the stag, but that happened.
That's fair. I would assume as you pass to the next place, maybe that just shifted, but I guess you could still be a stag. That's interesting. As I've got it written, your despair only, your hope only goes up if you roll under your despair on a reckoning. The other way, again, is to do something risky and succeed at it with a 6. So those are the 2 ways to increase your hope. Are you, Akie, you look frozen on the... Oh, never mind. You were just still... just checking it wasn't my internet.
No, I was just like...
No, that's fine. No worries. And again, with these new manifestations and almost the land, your form blossoming, coming to life more, you still hear the singing of those ancestral warriors further behind you, still more and more making their way along the path. It's sometimes beautiful, sometimes still dreadful, though, because you hear the sounds of bodies coming up out of the mire and some sort of this pulling themselves out of the roots and untangling themselves. Some of them, there's very little physical body left, and it's become more plant than human at this point. But they're still driven to that purpose. And you see, you're kind of in this last stretch of this thicket of where, these roots and branches and vines coming out of the swamp almost kept you back. And you see those intruders coming into the swamp that the sisters mentioned. Coming through what looks like another gate of this time of vines and brambles. It's actually like many gates, like little portals taking shape. And some of them remind you of yourselves, maybe when you were younger, when you first went out on an adventure, when you had armed yourselves, you'd packed your gear, everything that you thought you might need, feeling brave, very determined, and like nothing could stop you, that you deserve to go out there and find glory and treasure and meet your destiny. Very hopeful looking, but very foolish, and very greedy. As you see, they're all kind of eyeing each other, sort of ready to seize what they can. And you see the warriors coming up behind you. This almost like this big skirmish is getting ready to happen. That's what I'm picturing. And then we're moving. Yeah, is there anything you want to do at that point to influence things here? You still have your dirges.
I would like to try to awaken a worthy hero, as I was tasked to do.
One of them, is there one that you see in particular, or do you want to do a dirge to find them?
Yeah. I think I see one with horns like I used to have, regular kind of you know, regular curvy horns like me, younger or not very old. I'm thinking Basil probably died in her like 40s or so. So someone who is not past midlife, but also not totally young, and someone with courage in their eyes.
Yeah, you see them among the other companions making their way in, and there's something that seems like their light hasn't yet faded. You see some of their companions are a little more haggard and a little more just rough looking, like they've been through this before. They're a little bit willing to do whatever it takes, and this one stands out to you as not so corrupted yet, perhaps. Yeah.
I would like to do a dirge in order to, and I think I'll do apparition. Well, no, I think I also had the same one that Dua had as far as awaken a spirit of an old tree. So I'd like to, I don't know about how this works with the weapon, because you mentioned that this was one of the goals, was to awaken an old hero. And ultimately, I still feel like I need to embody the weapon, and I don't know that I've done that yet.
Well, I think, again, it's kind of up to how we want to collaborate on it. I think definitely if you like this, I think that in picking up the weapon from further back and continuing to sort of increase in your hope and your ghostly essence.
I've been like attuning to it.
Yeah, or maybe even it's the difference between that relic and the person you once were is merging. So especially with those symbols glowing on you and you just taking this new form, you and the weapon are more and more the same thing. It's just a matter of you meeting the living person who can use that power.
Cool. Yeah, I'd like to awaken a sleeping tree and get that tree to sort of say hello.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, because you were told, you realized you needed to pull that weapon further out from the center of the swamp, and as you have been getting further and further away, and as you and your essence and that relic are sort of merging, you feel like your edges are becoming more tangible. Before you were just that floating mass of like glowing light and spores, but you feel like maybe if you awaken this tree in this physical form, you might be able to give form to that weapon again.
Cool. Yeah.
Cool.
Let's do some rolling.
All right. It's your skilled embodiment, right? That's pretty clear there. So light dice for that, a dark dice for the dirge.
And who was the goddess who asked me to do this?
You said it was Frenzia, right?
Frenzy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. And because, again, just sort of how I'm framing it is you kind of made these prayers early on and you're still sort of acting according to what happened there. So that's still giving you that aid. That's the idea.
And so I pick another light dice. Okay. Here we go. All right. My dark dice was 3 and the highest light dice was 4. My hope is also 4, so did not make my hope increase.
So if you want to, you have the option. So it is a success. There's something that's complicated. You can add another dark dice and re-roll everything if you want to try and get to the 6, but you don't have to.
I'm all right. I like something a little complicated.
So you awaken this tree. It's like, I'm picturing it's like a willow tree, maybe, like it's got very long, like flowy branches. You're trying to make it into this more firm, tangible form, maybe almost like the handle of this sickle or something like that. I think somehow in the process of it, you become entangled as well, because you're attempting to sort of fully embody this relic. It's like the transformation is like pauses midway. It's like incomplete. Somehow it doesn't fully connect. And I think this warrior sees you and sees this happen and kind of steps away from their companions, and is now looking at this tree, which has become luminous, and it's almost like they're seeing something within the tree, but it's not fully emerged. What would you like to do?
I guess try to untangle from the tree.
Yeah. You could do...
I don't know. We can also move the narrative around. I'm all right to just have it be paused. Yeah, let's just do that.
Yeah.
Camera move.
Yeah, camera moves over to those other ancestors of Dua. I mean, again, we didn't... Correct me if it's not what you were thinking. I think some of them are definitely ancestors. Maybe some are just other fallen warriors.
Right. But they're all are invited to the ancestral ground. All who we found.
Yeah, they've all definitely been like awoken by that song and that light. They're following it, and they start to emerge. And again, it looks like there's this battle getting ready to happen, because I think what you start to see is like there's almost like a border, you can tell, where like there's the outside of the fen of the swamp, and there's this kind of edge where the land has continued to push back and protect itself. And there's these invaders coming in, and there's these beings who have become part of the swamp rising up to the edge of it, and they're sort of facing each other. And there's this kind of moment where things are just like in this spiritual world in between realms. You can almost see things move in slow motion, and you, as this spectral being, can sort of float in between and see it from every angle and see it from any perspective. And you realize you have a chance to influence this one way or another. Is there a way you would like to do that?
Oh, yes. I would like to do it. Do I know of a way? Not as yet. However, I'm thinking, okay, warrior, knight, errant, skilled in ruthlessness. That is my role. I shall use my newest dirge, Howl, which I used to haunt not so long ago, and as the ranks of dead and rotting and mostly plant soldiers line up behind me on the verge of this clash between the dead and the living, I shall once again... What will I do? Okay, yeah, I will. I shall once again put my both hands in the earth, and I will do the dirge of Howl, and I will use my skill with expression to steady and prepare my ranks to defend this land. That's right. I'm a fool to do your dirty work, yeah. To defend this swampland from these foolhardy young invaders who may one day end up, as we all are, here in this limbo. The idea being maybe I can, at the very least, repel them a while longer until Basil is able to figure out what's
Mhm.
going on with that weapon and find the
Mhm.
warrior
Yeah.
and all that stuff. So just really trying to not to defeat them and overrun them, but to defy their desire to
Mhm.
claim to claim more ground. I
Yeah.
think that's just a dirge, right? It's just one thing. I'm gonna try to use the skill of expression,
Yeah. Definitely. That makes sense. So
but
yeah, that the light dice, it's a risk roll because you're using a dirge. Light dice from expression makes sense. Um, dark dice for the dirge. Um, again, up to you if you want to call on that sort of deity that has, you were fulfilling their quest here a little bit, or if you want to call out and see if something else that lives here answers. Either way, you can add another light dice.
yes, I actually will call out to uh you know what? I was gonna do this later, so maybe I will. So then I will just call upon Frenzia to enliven our ranks for the chaos of battle, and still using my skill of expression, I shall remind these warriors that we have all known the chaos of battle, the blood and the bile in the abattoir, and we shall, in fighting these young warriors, we save them from for one day more from knowing that greatest horror of
Becoming the loam and the muck and
that's
merging with
right. Thank
becoming
you
another
for
body in the bog.
exactly what I was going to say. Just let me finish.
And of dying without
Of dying
honor.
without honor, yes, as
Mhm.
I once did. And so, yeah, I've called upon Frenzia. So that's 2 light dice and 1 dark die. Yes? Is that
Yeah.
correct? Okay.
Mhm.
Oh, man. I'm scared. All right, dark die 1, light die 1, light die 2.
Wow. So, at least you didn't go
At
above.
least
So
it,
you can
yeah, exactly.
you can add a dark dice and reroll everything if you want to. It's just further risking your ghostly light that you have.
I don't see why not. You didn't come this far.
So
Fortune
you,
favors the bold. So 2 light
2
dice
light
and 2 dark
and
die
2 dark.
now.
Hmm.
I mean, I rolled 2 ones. What's the likelihood? You know what I mean? Okay, here we go.
Hmm.
Oh, this worked out. 2 and 4 on the dark die, 5 and 3 on the light die.
Nice. Yes, so that's a success on the light dice. Again, it's some sort of complication, not a perfect success.
Yeah.
Um, again, gotta make a lot of attempts to get the 6s, apparently. But what does it look like? They definitely respond to you, to your dirge, to your speech.
They form up a shield wall, and in this realm, it looks truly like soldiers preparing for battle, as we see these invaders come through. But part of me knows that in the real world, what the soldiers running towards us face is a sudden, impenetrable wall of gloom and despair, darkness so thick that it hampers movement and induces gibbering fear. And as they attempt to steel themselves to run forward despite this, they will hear from within that darkness a howl that is being enhanced in its wildness by Frenzia, who was holding a lightning bolt, right?
I think. Mhm.
Oh, lightning bolt and a flame.
Lightning bolt and a flame. So what I would like is that from this primordial darkness, all they see are flashes of light, and just seemingly numberless hordes of like just the shadow of like outrageously overnumbered numbers, and it causes them to retreat and regroup.
Awesome. It's almost like there's marsh gas lighting up as well, and the complication in this is that as you're seeing these warriors come to this battle, and many of them your ancestors, you look to the other side and you see that there's a few younger ones, and somehow you realize they're just the youngest generation, that they're also part of this line, and they're on the same path, coming in here to their doom if they're not careful. And both sides are facing off, and this sort of still it's unresolved. It's unclear if they're going to fully turn back or if they're going to keep trying to press through. So that's the complication. But
Sure.
For the time being, they have been repelled. And I think just narratively tied in, I think with that dirge happening and the sheer impact of that, Basil in sort of, and you tell me what you think it is, if you are sort of partially tree, you're entangled within that enlivened tree a little bit. You're sort of trying to embody that weapon so that this warrior can take hold of it. I think that impact of all that has kind of shaken things loose a little bit. Is there anything you'd like to add for sort of what your form is now?
I'm kind of thinking those antlers have just sort of like gripped along to the tree. Mm-hmm. So, and maybe you said it was kind of like a willow. So maybe like the willow's kind of wrapped around me. It's not like impenetrable, but like it's kind of like a tight sash that's kind of got me. And because I'm still ghostly form, it's not like I can fight back the way that, if I were a human, I'd just be like, "Rah!" But I can't do that. But I'm thinking, what I'm trying to do while I'm all wrapped up is actually to try to just sort of like drop the weapon under the tree, because I'm thinking the weapon is still like on me, either, on my body or in my hand. So I'm going to just try to drop the weapon under the tree so that hopefully, if the tree is still awakened, I can sort of have the tree be the means to get the attention of this young hero, and then that they would come upon the weapon and be like, "Oh, look at this pretty shiny thing."
Yeah, and I think from your last sort of dirge, they were sort of facing this tree and realizing there's something within it. And I think as this other dirge from your companion just shakes the earth, it causes yours to kind of further like shift and move. And I think like the willow tree moves its branches out and is holding this weapon if you want it to. And if you were trying to embody it, so your form could now become this scythe. But I'm thinking it's almost like the Dothraki, like Arak. It's like not a one-hand scythe. It's like a big two-hand curved moonlit blade.
With mother of pearl along the handle. So it's like a moon.
Yeah, and that is, in a way, that's your drive, but to complete it all the way through that weapon, through your sort of new form, you still need to speak and guide this new warrior to carry it forth and do this final deed. So this is, anything you want to add?
You just want me to speak?
Oh, you can. Yeah, totally. I'm trying to.
Or you wanted me to do a roll to see if I can speak?
I think that could be interesting.
Yes.
So I think what is the combination of your last two roll, like you and Aki's rolls that were like mixed results. I think it has happened. It's just slower and more complicated, and like you've taken form, and they have like found this thing, but now they need to like realize what the purpose is or what they're holding, maybe. But however you want to approach that. The risk would probably be that like something goes wrong or they don't hear your message or something.
Yeah, I was thinking I would do a roll to see whether or not in this moment I can like make the weapon, make myself speak through the weapon, or whether or not I don't have that much clout with it.
Okay.
And ultimately, if I can't, then like the weapon's just going to lie there and wait for the next worthy warrior, which, hey, at least I'm closer to the opening of the forest. But
yeah, and to be clear, unless like you actually hit the 6 despair, like the story's not over yet. It's just where it's at right now. Yeah.
Okay. So what am I rolling? I don't know what kind of roll this is.
This will be a risk roll. So any skills that you have you want to use? Guess embodiment.
Yeah. Well, courage also.
Oh, cool.
And also insight. I mean, I don't know. Any of them are relevant. A combination of them.
Yeah, I like that. So light dice from that. For flavor, I kind of have an idea. If you want to, there are many entities in this realm that you don't know about. If you want to make a prayer to one that might want to aid you in this, you can add a light dice, and then I'll describe who shows up if you want.
Sure.
Or it can be whatever.
Yeah, definitely. And then a dark dice too.
If you're using a dirge.
I found this on the web for if you're using a dirge. Check it out.
What? Okay, my phone wants to help me do a dirge.
Oh,
what did it?
For dirges?
What did it give you?
Oh, I already closed it, I think. My phone never does that. That was great.
Siri, look for a dirge. That's not working for me. Whatever. All right. So sorry. Okay. So I'm not rolling a dark dice?
Only unless you want to. So that's if you're specifically using a dirge to do this. If you're just doing a risk roll to see if you can communicate or whatever, that's fine.
Cool. I'll just do that.
So 2 light dice.
Yep.
Okay.
Hello?
One thing I didn't mention in the rules, you can always, if you haven't added dark dice, you can always roll and choose to add them later.
Oh, I got a 3 and a 6.
Wow. So your hope goes up by 1. It's a success, and part of why, and I just wanted an excuse to read these cool things that other people wrote in the game. The entity that answers your prayer is the sleeping knife. She is angles and lines, dragging a cloak of rusty knives behind her. Her voice is the sound of a blade against stone. She will cut away all that holds you to this world. So, this...
Perfect.
That's awesome.
Who wrote that?
Jamila Najati. Really awesome game designer.
Hey!
Really cool stuff. Very honored to have them write in this game. So you send this prayer out. You're speaking to this warrior or this would-be warrior who's holding this weapon, who's holding the form that you now embody. And you sense this new entity around you, and all of those restraining willow branches that you were still tangled in. Just you hear the sound of like a super keen blade just slicing them all free. And there's something else too that I'm just reading this other part for flavor, but the sharpest of your memories, which cut away at your heart and brought you despair, has been taken from you. In its place is hope, shining bright enough to burn away every shadow. What do you hope for now? open-ended.
Well, I think this is like kind of sad because Skye probably know that this is impossible, but I don't think Basil's ghost self realizes that this is impossible. But when they first said, when Frenzia first told me to awaken a worthy hero, she thought of her companion Dua, and she thought that's the warrior that should be awakened. And so her hope is that somehow, and it's probably blind hope, but she hopes that actually instead of this hero, that somehow seeing the blade shining on the ground, that this will bring Dua back from the dead, and that Dua will actually take up the blade and finish what they were both meant to do.
I'm going to interject because it's so appropriate in the theme, but here's what also gives you hope. And I think thematically, I'm just going to say this also gives Dua hope, because the warrior holding the blade is one of those that is his ancestor. So it's not that it's not him, but maybe that also is pretty tied in.
Sure.
It is, and it's not, and it is, and it isn't.
Well, and I mean, maybe me even thinking that gives him hope to, in another life or whatever, after he's gone to Valhalla, coming back and finding this young man and saying, all right, now give it to your elder. You've had your fun, kid.
All right. Yeah. Give it over to someone who knows how to use it. Right. If I would say, just I'm making this up on the spot, but I think, Akie, if you would like to name this younger warrior, then I think I'm going to tie that in and have that hope extend your character because of theme. Makes sense.
Also make it good, because this could be a character you could play in the future, and that's what's so great about Candlelight.
Hey.
This young warrior's name is
Put you on the spot. I can't
last
name
time. How about this? His name. The young warrior's name is Osmo. Is Osmo Skyborn.
Badass. That's great. Osmo Skyborn, now holding Skye. I feel like this relic needs a name at this point too. Maybe it's one that Basil knew what it was called, or maybe as you actually fully embody it, you realize you have a name. What would you like to call it?
Moon Scissor.
Osmo Skyborn, now wielding Moon Scissor.
Because it slices pieces of the sky.
Yeah, it's like made of moonlight, literally. It's awesome. I feel like you should both play this character. That'd be a whole other game. We have to figure out how it works, but it'd be really fun if there was a game that was like a warrior and their sentient magic weapon. Would be really fun. Like a duo.
But also, like, yeah, it would be cool if it was also sort of like the hex blade a little bit.
Yeah, like
in D&D where,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Make a pact.
A pact, like it's summoned and
yeah.
That's cool.
But that's who steps forward through this last gate, backed by these other spirits. Some of them fully in spectral glowing form, and some of them just still pieces of the swamp that have woken up and come up fully alive. And beyond this final gate, you can see the very edges of the fen, and you also see the very edges of dawn approaching. The sky becoming lighter. All the stars that were overhead growing a little fainter. Some of those intruders into the swamp have kind of fled back to regroup. Some seem to have been lost in that darkness and maybe went further in. But you, both Basil in, I guess I should say, sorry, I already forgot the name. The Skye Scissor, what was the name?
Osmo Skyborn.
Osmo Skyborn and the blade. Oh, it was just called Moon Scissor. So I think, are you Basil any longer, or are you now Moon Scissor?
Basil was always also Shadowcat was her name.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing about Shadowcat, I do need to mention this for the viewers, but also for Akie, just because I think it's such a delightful story. But I named Basil Shadowcat, had this whole D&D campaign that we were all in, and then my cousin's little girl, who I have a very close relationship with, whose name is Lydia, who is 2 at the time, unrelated, one day told me that she had an imaginary friend, and her imaginary friend's name was Shadowcat, and it was a Shadowcat that lived on the ceiling. And
Wow.
if that's not some magic RPG real life stuff, I don't know what it is. So I think Basil is no longer Basil Dewspire. She is now Shadowcat Moon Scissor.
Oof.
That's can't top that.
Solid mouthful right there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Shadowcat.
Or actually, Shadowcat the Moon Scissor.
Even better.
And now that's a blade name. Oh yeah.
Yeah, Shadowcat the Moon Scissor. Yeah, in the hands of Orzo Skyborn, it's almost like we have like the youngest generation. It's like the front of this poster, you know, it's like in the very front, walking through the gate. Behind him, or we never said him or they, is there.
Yeah, kind of left it.
Yeah,
We'll see.
Yeah,
we don't
yet,
know.
Yet to
we
be
need not know for now. Yeah, we're ghosts. We have no idea.
Behind this young warrior, and somewhat manifested, still taking these forms of like decomposition and howling, dirges, stirring wind, and glowing foxfire. This form of Dua, their ancestor, and behind that, even more and more of these beings from the swamp, all coming forward. This is a whole scene that we see, and this last gate is just the very entrance to the swamp. This is the very last border between the world outside and this place where you came in originally. And the last thing you see in front of you is thick layers of reeds of the edge of the fen, and almost little canoes and little bridges and hideouts throughout, where you met these different brigands living in the swamp. People who maybe escaped to the outskirts of society, maybe just nothing more than brigands, you know, robbing from those who are in turn going to rob the swamp. Or maybe they're people who escaped almost all the way and just decided to make it on their own out in this wilderness. But still somewhat corrupted by this place. People who had threatened you on the way in and you managed to outwit one way or another. But they're sort of your last obstacle, or last thing you see between yourselves and that edge of that dawn coming through the swamp. You hear them singing songs, and you recognize this from, it seems like a whole other lifetime ago when you were adventurers coming into the swamp. But they're singing, mocking all the people who would come in here to steal the treasures of the cathedral, all the people in the different horrible ways they died in there. And you recognize the names of Basil and of Dua in the song. You each kind of have a verse dedicated to you now. How do you each feel about that? Or are there any phrases you would like to add to it?
Am I still here? Or am I in the sword?
You're in the sword completely, but as a player playing a character, you still perceive this, I guess. I don't know. You tell me. Does it mean anything anymore?
The name Basil means nothing anymore because I am now Shadowcat, the Moon Scissor, and I am in the hands of Osmo Skyborn. So, no, means nothing to me.
Seeing these sort of like brigands on the edge of civilization, and this is sort of like that point where all this started. This is where people started to come in here. Maybe where the first sorcerers came in and started doing these weird magics in the swamp, or maybe when people set out to build the cathedral. You don't really know were their intentions good or bad. It's just where all this started. As the Moon Scissor and as Duo, what would you like the outcome of this last area to be? Like, what mark would you like to leave on the world? And this is where we're entering that final song kind of phase.
Right. Duo will have won through. Duo will have won through. Behind him, still all the soldiers and quasi undead army or whatever, and so I assume we've left Osmo et al. Behind us, or have they paused? Are we with them?
They're with you, unless there's something different you want to say. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, then I have. It makes total sense that now that my esteemed companion in both life and death is in the blade, and I will sense that change. I think.
We didn't really narrate that moment, so we'll do a rewind for that.
Yeah, we really should. Yeah, do it now.
Oh, okay. Well, sorry. As Osmo Skyborn looks upon the blade, his fate is suddenly very clear to him, and he does not need to go through the swamp to the Flocculent Cathedral with everyone else. It's kind of amazing because he looks around and everybody's starting to take off, and he's like, oh, wait. And like, he knows that he's supposed to just take this out and go on some other sort of journey. And as he has that realization and he sees his people beginning to move further into the swamp, the song of Basil's that was the urchin's lullaby from which was sleep little swift one, what rest your weary head, keep the dark around you, shadows are your friends, some fill your pockets up, don't run away, and don't you get caught, is like humming very relaxing in a very relaxing fashion into his ears. And the staghorns that she had, where the flowers have bloomed, those flowers kind of like in the same way that the stag exhaled the poison, those flowers just sort of like via ergos kind of poof like glitter pollen, and the glitter pollen all kind of like settles on the blade, and he like lifts it up to his face and blows it off, and like in the etching of the blade now there the words to that's the sleep little swift one, rest your weary head, keep the dark around you, shadows are your friends, are written in both sides of the blade. And he doesn't really know what it means. And the name Basil Dewspire does come into his head, and he doesn't know what that means. But he knows that this is the moon scissor, and then he knows he has to go. And he follows whatever is left of the foxfire light that you have around you, Dua, towards the. And you see, and Dua sees as beginning with those flowers releasing that glitter pollen, my entire form, whatever that you could see of it, just kind of goes blue, light, moonlight, shimmery, and then just glitters into the ether.
That's amazing. I got earlier I was so caught up in trying to figure out how to make the things work that I totally went over your describing it. So I'm glad we went back to hear it.
It's okay.
Because that's such a cool moment.
Yeah.
It's pretty powerful to
It's very
get to do that.
telling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the blade now being held by Orzo Skyborn.
Mm-hmm.
I have ideas of things to add to narrate, but want to let you guys do whatever you would like to kind of add to, if you want to, go to the epilogues. Or if there's more things you want to get a chance to sort of influence and roll for, we have time to.
Well, this which was noticing that his.
All right. Yes.
Yeah.
Totally. So Dua will. This is partially epilogue in a sense. We'll go over to Osmo, who will not be able to perceive him, but will be able to see the trail of corruption and death beneath his feet from the manifestation. And I will call once again to me the foxfire to rest above my head, so now a floating orb under which a trail of death will approach Osmo, and I will look upon him and see both the youth of our people and also the history of our people put into the shape of this young warrior. And in an effort to guide them on their journey, Dua will let's see, what can I do that does this thing? I have a weird idea.
Do a weird idea.
I have a weird idea. Dua will oh yes, okay, so here's how we'll do it. Dua will grip the blade, and hoping that through the sentience and the knowledge of Shadowcat the Moon Scissor, words of wisdom will be communicated, if not by true language, but by thought, to young Osmo. And Dua will oh great, looking out upon, holding the blade, the actual blade itself as Osmo's holding it, looking out upon the warriors who seek to go home. He will, holding the blade with one hand, with his left hand, reach up to his left eye, and feeling no pain, or maybe feeling pain, but he's skilled in ruthlessness. He will remove phantom pain. He will attempt to remove that eye, but when he takes his hand away, his actual destroyed eyes will be in the hand, and he will run that along the blade, upon which viscera and oil will appear and then disappear, granting, hopefully, Osmo the wisdom of the ages. Yes, Takuma, Klingon Maktajash, and then he shall turn away and go back to the warriors, knowing that Osmo will have much to parse in the coming days.
Wow. That's amazing. I feel
That's
like
how you do it. Flowers, cups, and tears, y'all.
Flowers, cups, and tears. I wish I had worked
Yeah.
out. Yeah, that's cool though.
I feel like that's the epilogues. I think the last things too, just in this whole scene, are all those risen warriors that fell to the swamp has sort of been given life again through the swamp in the same way that all their flesh decayed and was recycled by the land and new life came out of it. And all the sorcery and dark magic was given sort of new direction and enlivened their bodies as new guardians of the swamp. They continue to watch the borders. Just as this new warrior heads on and sort of embodying, the best wishes and the true drives of both these spirits that were lost in the fen. New guardians of the swamp galaxy, yes.
That was fast.
Yeah, nice. Steps out beyond the very edge of the swamp where both of you first came in. And their story is maybe another story to tell. But both of you, I think, one way or another, met your drives and achieved what you would hope to, I think.
In this last moment turning away, something I had been slowly putting together, I think Dua finally hears the words of the song that the warriors are singing. And I don't have a melody for it, but I do have words. Maybe it is a chant against, swords against shields. And it is, move on, brother, move on, sister. Tarry no longer in a world of mud and stone. Farewell, sister. Farewell, brother. Tally your glories and carry them home. Lead on, mothers. Lead on, fathers. 7 strange sisters are coming to call. Uh-oh. Wait for me, father. Wait for me, mother. And save me a space in the ancestors' hall.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
On this soiled coffee napkin.
Amazing.
Yeah.
There's nothing I could add to that. That's amazing.
I had hoped to make a song, but I just couldn't think of a songy thing. I thought it would,
No, keep those lyrics around. That's
We can do it.
It can
and
be
we
turned into a song, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say we can edit this later, and if there's a voice memo of the song,
Yeah.
just here we go.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
So anyway, I think that's maybe what Dua finally hears as he takes his place among the warriors who will defend the swamp.
And maybe just again, because of that last hope that Basil had for it to be Dua who would get the blade. Maybe because of that, even though all of her spirit was mainly gone, before you take your place, you feel like a little Basil pat upon your shoulder that just stays there for just a second, and then
Yes. And the ghost and the spirit of Dua shall be known as Dua Grievous Moon Touched.
Names just keep getting cooler. It's
Just keep adding. adding
yeah,
to-
titles. Yeah.
I mean, I think I thought in the long run it would be cool to think of this eternal spirit guard of this swamp is no longer like a cursed place, but is a sacred place.
Yeah.
know.
I feel like it's totally been transformed. Yeah, it has a different meaning. Which, hey, that's kind of the goal of Candlelight.
Boom!
Sort of, I guess, a horror game, but becomes a hopeful game and has a hopefully mix of those elements. And looking at your characters and stuff, it's kind of cool that no one really hit the max hope or despair, but that by the end of it, that's kind of irrelevant. Like the
I was
story
at
arc
5.
Oh, you were close. Yeah.
I was
Five
at
hope,
5. Yeah. So like, and I kind of felt like some of those last moments would have thematically bumped it up to 6, but yeah. Yeah, it was great. This is fantastic. Well done.
Thanks for playing. Yeah, amazing
Yeah.
story.
Yeah, we remain on Earth. We never achieved our 6, but that's all right.
But that's
We're-
just a marker. Yeah.
That's right. We're just spirits out here doing spirit stuff.
Yeah, and it keeps going on too. Like it's literally there's all the dark past and the stuff being reborn. There's still the ghosts that are maybe despairing. There's still the ghosts that are hopeful, and like it's all still coexisting, which is so much cooler.
I look forward to re-watching this once it's up and figuring out thematically who were the sisters that we missed, as far as like what were some of the other themes that came up that we could have built a sister around.
Right. Yeah.
You know? But we got 4.
We got 4 nice sisters, and then I was like, I don't want to push it unless something
Yeah.
really cool.
Well, and you're like, how many are there? Like,
occurs.
how many are there? What do you think? They're endless ones.
I don't know. I just wanted something alliterative.
Yeah,
6, 7, 16. I just wanted to say sisters, 16 sisters, whatever.
yeah.
So I
7
went- I
sisters
went with
feels
7,
right.
just because
Yeah.
it seems magically
It does.
weird and it doesn't
does
have
feel
to
like
actually
there
be
should-
7. Yeah.
Does feel like there should be a sister of the moon. Probably.
Yeah, so much moon stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sister of the moon stuff?
Sister of the, of the moon.
All right.
Maybe that's just her name. Maybe she is literally just Sister of the Moon stuff.
Sister of the moon stuff.
Well, I'm going to pause the recording part there, and we will continue chatting. But whoever's watching, thanks so much for watching.
Thank
This has
you.
been Gabriel, Skye, and Akie. Oh, I didn't end it. Hold on. That's not the right button. That was a right click. End. End broadcast. There we go.